Hey everyone, I hope y'all are having a great day, and today I'll be reviewing A Very Large Expanse of Sea by Tahereh Mafi. If you've been on this channel before, you might know that I have said some unfavorable things about Tahereh's books in the past, and I still stand by that, but I'd been hearing so many great things about this new book of hers, and I'd seen quite a few people say that the writing style was very different than the writing style in Shatter Me, and it's also a contemporary novel with a person of color main character, so this book just seemed totally up my alley. I read it on ebook, but I also checked out the audiobook from the library, so I kind of half listened to it, half read it on my own, and I really enjoyed this book. Like, I cannot really articulate how surprised I was that I was enjoying a Tahereh book so much. But this book, for those who don't know, is about a girl named Shireen. She's a teenage girl, she moves around a lot, she's starting a new school. It's set in 2002, so a year after the 9/11 attacks, and Shireen is Muslim, she's a hijabi girl, and so in addition to dealing with just the general BS that a teenage girl has to deal with, she also has to deal with a lot of prejudice and a lot of bigotry that normally takes form in Islamophobia. It's also primarily a love story. There is a beautiful teenage boy named Ocean who takes interest in Shireen, and this whole book is just so angsty and sweet and thoughtful and angry. There are just so many deeply personal things written into this book. It does feel semi-autobiographical. Like, our main character is Muslim and loves to break dance and is also really interested in fashion, and Tahereh Mafi is also all of those things. So it does feel like one of those books where the author is very much present in the story. And like, it kind of makes me sad that Tahereh wrote so many books before writing this one, just because I feel like this is the story that I want to read, and this is the story that I want authors to be telling. I think there are so many great and powerful lines all throughout the book. I highlighted so much of this book, and as a child of immigrants, there are some things that just really resonated with me. I'm gonna read this one quote that I highlighted. It's kind of long, so bear with me, but I just think it so perfectly captures what it feels like to grow up in America when you have parents who have moved here. People had been shitting on me for having the wrong name, race, religion, and socioeconomic status since as far back as I could remember. But my life had been so easy in comparison to my parents' own upbringing that they genuinely couldn't understand why I didn't wake up singing every morning. My dad's personal story was so insane. He'd left home all alone for America when he was 16 that the part where he was drafted to go to war in Vietnam actually seemed like a highlight. When I was a kid and would tell my mom that people at school were mean to me, she'd pat me on the head and tell me stories about how she'd lived through war and an actual revolution, and when she was 15, someone cracked open her skull in the middle of the street while her best friend was gutted like a fish. So hey, why don't you just eat your Cheerios and walk it off? I ate my Cheerios. I didn't talk about it. There are just so many lines or passages in this book where it just felt so much like something that I could write or I could relate to. One line that I thought was really funny was, "Ocean was a really good-looking guy." And I know this doesn't sound like a valid reason to dislike someone, but it was reason enough for me. I don't know, it's like she brought in so many unspeakable truths that I have thought myself. Okay, here's another really important line. I promise this is the last one I'm going to share, but it's honestly really hard to choose which ones I want to share because so much of this book is so quotable or resonant and impeccably accurate. It was so hard for Ocean to stomach that the world was filled with such awful people. I tried to tell him that the bigots and the racists had always been there, and he said he'd honestly never seen them like this, that he never thought they could be like this. And I said, yes, I know. I said, that's how privilege works. Mic drop. Shireen could just like walk out of the room after saying that. There's just so many brilliant topics that this book touches upon, and it does so with a lot of courage and a lot of candor, and it just makes you feel so affected by all the things that Shireen is also going through. The romance between Shireen and Ocean is so dramatic. It is so incredibly dramatic. It's like Romeo and Juliet up in here. But it's also just so beautiful. It's really moving, and I think what's really impressive is that Shireen is really self-aware, and she's like, Ocean, we're 17 years old. Nothing about this could be forever. And I honestly feel like it's the very first time I've ever read a young adult romance where these teenagers are very aware of their age and they know that they're young. The camera angles in this video are gonna be whack because I keep thinking that I've finished talking about this book, and then I'm like, oh god, I forgot something, and then I have to set up the camera again and record again. Something I really want to talk about is Ocean. Ocean is like the golden boy of the school, and he takes this interest in Shireen, and he like just really wants to understand her, and he thinks that she's beautiful. And that interest, that innocent interest, is just so foreign to our main character. Ocean is objectively a really great guy. He has almost no flaws, which is kind of weird, but I wanted to talk about Ocean just because he is a white boy and our protagonist is a woman of color. And something that I think is like peripherally touched upon but not actually talked about or explored is like this idea that you're ascribed value when people find you beautiful, and that value is higher when it's a white person finding you beautiful as opposed to a person of color finding you beautiful. I don't know, maybe I'm like injecting too much of my own opinion or lived experience into this, but in this book there's Ocean, who's a white boy who thinks that Shireen is beautiful, and then there's also a brown boy who thinks that Shireen is beautiful. And it just really got me thinking about the fact that I feel like growing up in this society where the standard of beauty is both modeled by and upheld by white people, when it's a white person finding you beautiful, it just feels like you have more value than when a person of color tells you that you're beautiful. Which is obviously not something that maybe everyone experiences, but it's definitely something that I've experienced growing up, and it's definitely something that I've noticed just like in a lot of different social interactions. And again, I can't speak for everyone. I just feel like it was so explicit in this book because once Ocean and Shireen started dating, it's like people cannot believe it. People cannot believe that this white boy has an interest in a woman who looks like that. They're basically saying that he's ascribing value to her that nobody else sees. Right now I don't have the brain capacity or the vocabulary to just really accurately describe how real it felt to read that in the book, because it really reflects how I have seen society work in my 21 years of life in the US. Ultimately, it comes down to like if a white person likes you or if a person of color likes you, it seems like more of an accomplishment to have the affection of a white person. This is getting really bold to say, and also kind of unfounded because I don't have, the research to back up these claims. I can only say this is what I felt growing up and this is what I feel like the book portrayed, because I just feel like, it's kind of an unspoken truth. I'm getting too worked up over this. On with the rest of the book review. I don't know if you know this about me, but I would much rather sleep than do literally almost anything. If someone's like, let's get food, let's watch a movie, let's go out, let's whatever, I will honestly probably turn them down because I want to sleep. Sleep is really important to me, and I think going through my particular high school experience where like I wasn't allowed to sleep more than 3 hours a night for like 2 years straight has really drilled in me the importance of sleep and how much I want to make up for that miserable time of my life. But when I was reading this book, I finished it so fast, maybe in like 2 days. I stayed up till like 3 a.m. reading because I wanted to finish the book, because I didn't want to put it down. It has been so long since I voluntarily chose to do something else instead of sleeping when I felt tired. Like, I want to highlight what a feat that is for a book to make me want to continue reading even when I'm tired. Yeah, it just really transported me back to like 7th and 8th grade when I would stay up late reading, because I would never do that anymore. But this book, it really got me. One nitpicky thing that I will say is that listening to the audiobook made me realize how often these characters say "oh" or "wow." And I think I noticed it so much because the audiobook narrator, while for the most part was pretty good, this is the first audiobook that I listened to that I didn't actively dislike. I really do not like most audiobooks, so the fact that I didn't like outright hate this one was really a big step for me. The audiobook narrator says each "oh" or "wow" with the same intonation. It's so easy to tally how many times they've said this word, but again, I realize it's really nitpicky, and I think if I had just read it on my own I wouldn't have noticed, but listening to the same "oh, oh, oh" over and over and over again anytime there was a passage of dialogue it made itself very prominent. But yeah, this book was so beautiful. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. I knocked out a star because it's just so incredibly melodramatic. It's like, if you've read it, you know what I mean. But it's like the entire town becomes super invested in this relationship between Shireen and Ocean. Like the things that Ocean in particular is willing to risk for this relationship. It's just a lot happening. So I knocked it to 4 stars. Other than its like incredibly melodramatic plot, I thought the book itself was just so stunning. The writing style is definitely so much more my taste than what it was in the Shatter Me series. I think the voice of our main character is just the right amount of angry. I really loved how present Shireen's family was and how she has such a good relationship with her older brother. I'm trying to remember if I have anything else to say. It's been maybe like a week since I finished reading it, so I've definitely forgotten some things. But ultimately what you need to know is that it's so beautiful, it's so romantic, it's so painful at times. There are times where I literally just sobbed like a little child, because there are parts where it's like really heartbreaking. But overall, just a really gorgeous book. I highly recommend it. If you've read this, please let me know your thoughts in the comments. I would love to know. If you haven't read this, I'd really recommend it. My only reservation is that it's a little dramatic, but if you're used to YA, you'd be used to that, so it's okay. But yeah, thanks so much for watching. I hope you'll have a fantastic day and happy reading. Bye.